Welcome back, and as promised, we're now going to continue by looking at economics and wonder to what extent is it sometimes ideology and when is it theory. Remember that when we talked about the UK, when we talked about the current Prime Minister, David Cameron, a conservative in favour of small government, that he is now using the economic crisis as a kind of excuse, some say, to do what he is ideologically poised to do, that is reduce government, make a small government. So he's using economic arguments. We need to cut back costs. And he's using that economic argument to further his ideological view. Smaller government is better than bigger government. Now, let's take a look at the science of economics. To what extent is economics science? Well, it is a social science, and that means that it's about making predictions, trying to grasp, trying to perhaps quantify in very difficult formulae and equations, trying to quantify what happens. But there is the age-old quote that says that economists have predicted 13 out of the past 4 recessions. In other words, economists try to predict, they try to quantify, but it's very hard to do so. They get it wrong all of the time. They're very good at explaining what happened after the facts, but they cannot predict them. So, important to know, it's not physics. It's not a hard science, it's a soft science, it's social science. And because it is not that hard science, sometimes ideology will slip in. And that is what we find now, that we truly have that discussion. Is capitalism and free market thinking still the best way to organize our economy and our society as a consequence? Or are there other options that we need to look at? The crucial, or perhaps central, question that we then have to answer is the one that we have on the bottom of the slide here. A rising tide lifts all boats, so-called trickle-down idea. Now, what does this mean? When you have boats floating on the water and the tide comes in, so water rises, the rising tide will make sure that all the boats go up. So the idea is that if the economy is improving, that is the rising tide, the economy is going up, we've got economic growth, then all the boats, the big boats of the big companies and the rich people, but also the tiny little canoes, etc., of the poor people, everybody will go up, all boats will rise, everybody benefits. And this is the idea that wealth will trickle down. It's like a drop of water that somehow will always find its way to the lowest place. This is the kind of thinking that David Cameron and the Republicans and also many Democrats in the States are favoring. Laissez-faire is what we need to do. Small government is needed so that the economy is free to prosper, and once the economy is growing, everybody will benefit. Focus on economic growth, and also poor people will benefit, will do better. On the other hand, you've got people saying, well, look at the economic crisis, look at the fact that more and more people are becoming poor. Rising tides do not lift all boats. They say people are drowning. And that is a very important question that is also for you to answer. So that is why we, as your teachers here at the University of Ghent, invite you to adopt a critical attitude. Think about these key issues for social, economic and political life. These are not straightforward questions, and it's very hard to tell what is ideology and what is good fact, what is good science. So this is an invitation to you to read, to talk, to listen and to reflect on these issues. If you want to start, you can watch 2 opposite views, one by Milton Friedman, remember, School of Chicago, Adam Smith-like, supply-side economics, monetarism, free trade laissez-faire, who made way back in the 70s, I think, a very nice series, Free to Choose, where you get a very good idea of the phenomena behind it. And on the other hand, Michael Peranti, who is a social critic and who is ranting sometimes against corporate America and who wants to show that capitalism is very bad.